like to make sense of things. A woman is not anything in particular.
There is not one particular thing.
It could be many things to many people.
Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas.
I like scented candles. I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah,
How do I know if I'm a woman?
that's a great question.
You're not a scientist. You're not a gender studies major.
No,
How do you know that you're a man?
I guess because I got a dick.
Can a man become a woman?
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Women only know what women are.
Are you a cat?
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is? Do you want to tell us what a woman is?
I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male. I will never be a man.
And so they go on the internet and they're told that all their problems will be solved if they become a man.
So you worry that there could be a sort of social contagion element to this?
A teeny tiny bit, maybe.
It got me at 42. Your child doesn't have a chance.
My conversations, or like the conversations I would overhear between other girls and women, they often spoke very negatively of being a woman in general, like about how difficult puberty is and periods and how scary it is to be pregnant and then give birth and then have all these expectations placed on you as a mother and then start aging, start having these bodily changes and then eventually go through menopause. And it was all painted in a very negative light. I never really heard about the blessings that came with any of these parts of being a woman. And so naturally, I mean, I wouldn't want
You're
to
starting
grow
to get
into
afraid
one.
of that.
Yeah.
You said salvage what's left of their liberal base. That's a good way to put it. But then I have to think, well, what's wrong with that base? That would salvage them.
Well, I think...
I mean, you understand that's how regular people look at it. Like, I'm a dad, I got 2 sons, you know, they can't, I'm not going to let them watch the Grammys. I mean, one of my sons caught a little piece of it and said, Dad, it looks like they're all in hell. And I said, no, we're in hell for having to watch it. Change the channel. I mean, he was going, what am I looking at? You know, a little kid who loves music, and he's seeing that go on, like Sam Smith is being devoured by demons on the stage when they push him down at the end, like they're eating him or whatever that was supposed to be. And then brought to you by Pfizer, my son goes, the vaccine company's behind this? I went, yeah, he's 11.
Well, so it used to be that there were very few channels. Cable TV didn't get really that much ratings because it cost money. And so the Grammys probably got 30 million viewers because people turned on the TV, and that's what was on. Everybody was talking about it.
It's really incredible to me how few people are aware we're reusing rockets. We have space flights on a semi-weekly basis. They're increasing, they're getting better, we're using less to do it. And we're becoming interplanetary with every passing day. But it seems like there's a lot of people who are tied up in a lot of nonsense and not doing what human beings do. 15,000 years ago, the sea level went up 80 feet in 500 years. In Stone Age, human beings survived that because that's what we do. We survive, we advance, we evolve, we get better, not worse. We don't cut bait and give up. We don't lay down and say, well, let's just do as little as possible. We advance. We go literally to the stars. And we find a way to do it with less environmental impact and cheaper. Because that's what people do. More with less. That's what we're very good at. I'm teaching myself to be more self-sufficient and to grow more with less. Because I'm getting ready to terraform. So I'm going to better myself. And I'm going to go and do cool things. Learn to do more with less. And I'll leave you to worry about the best.
Hey.
All right. It looks like I left a little on the end of that video. Sorry, everybody. Welcome back. Since I screwed Scott up there, I'll play us in. My name's Jay. This hombre to my right is Scott, very good friend of mine, and we're here to talk to you about things that are relevant rather than irrelevant, wishy-washy, stupid, or placating a large group of people who simply want whatever is annoying to everybody else. Essentially, that's our deal. And so that's what we're going to do for like the next hour.
Or in my case, I'm just here to piss you the fuck off. So,
well, that's part of it.
That's where I'm going. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Jay? How's things in the? So we had a huge rainstorm here in BC, folks. For those of you that don't live in BC, for those of you that do, probably anywhere in the province, you were affected by quite the big rainstorm today. We had 107 millimeters, which is 10.7 centimeters. And put it to you this way, that's a lot of rain. And we had that in the span of about 6.5 hours. So it was pretty heavy rain.
Yeah, and it hasn't stopped yet here.
Yeah, it stopped.
And we also had an earthquake down here in the Kootenays in Kimberley. They had a 3.9, I think, this or late last night.
Oh,
to go along with other earthquake issues around the world, we got a little taste of it.
I thought interesting. I thought somebody looked up earthquakes today in the office. And I think he must have been mistaken because he said there had been no earthquake. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm going to have to look it up later. Either way.
I don't think they announced the earthquake in Kimberley till later because people reported it on Facebook and then they didn't get a hold of the Seismographic Institute until later on. And then they looked at the data and said, oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But they don't know if it's if it's a warning of a larger one coming. Because it's the problem with hurricanes that are under 4, and that's why they take them seriously, because that can be a precursor. That can be a precursor to a much larger earthquake that's coming. Sometimes there's, something like that, which was the case in Syria and Turkey. There was a couple, and then the big one came later on. Now, as far as the big one goes, looked up the stats today, folks. That is the 23rd largest earthquake all time. It was a 7.5. So, it's not an incredible earthquake by any standard. It's not even the biggest one since 2014. But the problem is when it hits a city that is not at all built for earthquakes, or a group of cities, actually, it's a very, very densely populated region that it hit. And that can cause problems. Just like a less severe hurricane can do a huge amount of damage if it just happens to hit the right place. So they're kind of synchronous in that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, here we're on the, I believe, the San Andreas fault line. So here, in our case, it's not a matter of if we get a big earthquake. It's a matter of when. And the last I read up on it, it wasn't. It was long overdue. Like, scientists were quite surprised we hadn't had a significant earthquake along our sector of that fault line. So that's good news. That
it is
that we haven't had it, but
considering that San Francisco got it too, that's obviously not Yeah, that's obviously the south end, which I don't know. I mean, there's been so many studies, and they're very contrary studies because plate tectonics is not one of the most exact sciences around. So it's a real toughie. It's up there with like meteorology and so on. Like it's an ebbing, flowing, ever evolving conceptual based on models. Anything that's based on models, and you know, as per the intro there, and the models. My first, I'm just going to kick off with one real quick little clip here for everybody. If I can remember how to do this.
No.
The machine.
I can.
When did you first communicate with Justin Trudeau after he was elected prime minister?
Looks like you got it.
It was in Davos.
Yeah. Davos. So that, among other things, is the reason that the Conservatives have decided to call on the Governor General, if they are not already looking at the relationship with the former head of McKinsey Consulting, who is now serving as Canada's ambassador to, guess who?
I can only imagine it's China.
Yeah, that's right, China. And so, you know, the reason I bring this up now, and when we're talking about models, is because we pay 3 times this much to Deloitte consultants. Deloitte, if you haven't heard of them, this is the company who has created the model for climate change. That they're the 100-year model, that they're basing the entire hypothesis of all the people that they need to starve and kill and etc. to save people in the future. If you want to know, go Google Sri Lanka. You can see that it's already happening. The climate initiative kills more than it saves, and their 100-year model is just wrought with failure and hockey stick graphs. And but anyway, so all these countries have paid Deloitte consultants hundreds of millions of dollars to create this 100-year doomsday forecast that just happens to line up exactly with the World Economic Forum's bullshit. You know, the way that they're trying to control us. It lines up with eliminating the dependence that the world has on Russia and the Middle East for oil and gas by pure manipulation of the masses. And it's wrong, and we're paying them to do this. And so the Conservatives are going so hard after McKinsey because there's a connected person. This is very, very not a non-ethical business agreement. McKinsey got 7 of their 11 projects were not put up for bid. They were just, McKinsey got the job without it going up for bid. This is a government job. As a corporation, the Rabbit Hole Guild is fiduciarily responsible to take quotes. I can't just go out and buy something without getting 5 quotes because that is not ethical.
It's not ethical in construction. It's not ethical in any business. But I mean, we're talking about the government here, so they don't give a shit about ethics. Carry on, good sir.
And so that's what all that's about. Like, you know, I'm just saying, like, if I know there's probably not anybody here who's that foolish, but if you were if somebody was to be you know, taking a look at what the liberal media is saying about why do you care so much about McKinsey? You should care about the other ones more. You should care about the other ones more. No. Well, yeah, they're all Davos related and they'll all come under scrutiny. But right now, one of our own is responsible for this. By our own, I mean somebody who's getting their paycheck from us. And that's the primary target. That is step 1. You cut off the head and then you work your way down from there. Because this guy in this testimony, man, this guy doesn't know shit about the operation of the corporation that he was the president of. Like it's simply, it's basically just relationship trafficking. Their main existence is to go to Davos and introduce people, and they don't know how a company even works. He knows nothing about this company. It's unethical on that level that all he does is influence peddle.
Yeah. Now, we're referring to McKinsey. So, we can put a link up for you guys to look them up if you want. But in relation to Davos, in relation to our government, in relation to our our goings on in the world scale, I've got something here, and I don't know if this is actually going to be working right now. Give me 1 second here, folks. Sometimes these things don't happen to work out the way I want them to. And by the way, we missed you guys Sunday. I hope you missed us. You probably didn't. You're probably regretting being here now. However, I'm still a little under the weather, as you can probably tell. Here, let's see. Where's my... All right. Give me 1 second here. Still trying to... Okay. I think I got it. Okay. Okay. We're good. Jay, you still with me? All right.
Yeah. Muy bueno, muy bueno.
Muy bueno, whatever the fuck that means. Oh, yeah, that means very good. Okay. Okay, so in regards to our government and their involvement with the WEF and whatnot. Now, always, guys, in every stream, you'll see at the bottom, there's a ticker. You'll see our socials, subject matter. So we'll have a couple of things we're going to talk about on the bottom. In particular, I want you guys to pay attention at the end. Excuse me. Right at the end is our Rabbit Hole Guild Telegram page. Please go there, join that, and we will be posting more and more there. But typically what you're going to find in our stream will be there first. I don't always get to covering all of it, but generally speaking, I try and post this stuff in the Telegram feed, so you guys know. You can go find it. Now, this one here, Jay, this is Chrystia Freeland's involvement, and so you'll see I put here somewhere in the ticker. I don't know if it picked it up actually. Either way, there's no point in creating conspiracy theories, and so we're never going to try and do that here. On the Rabbit Hole Guild, or on the Unacceptables, rather. But I think in this case, and this is not the right one right here. Is it this one? Here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Share screen looks
me?
good.
Okay. So here we've got an article from the National Post. Rupa Subramanya, I think her name is. Chrystia Freeland's side gig with the WEF is endangering Canadian democracy. So, literally, there's no need to invent conspiracy theories. The attempt to buy global elites to subvert local democracy is fully on and in plain view. This is from the National Post, and here's an article, and I just want to read this first paragraph here, and we're going to talk about this. The World Economic Forum, WEF, which has met in the Swiss ski resort of Davos every year since its creation, and who gives a fuck, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's an annual Schmooze Fest, a virtual event this year due to COVID-19. Of note, the main agenda was a stakeholder capitalism panel, which included Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. The former journalist turned politician has been a fixture at the WEF for years, rubbing shoulders at Davos with the world's rich and famous. And powerful was one of the inspirations for her 2012 book, Plutocrats, The Rise of the Global Super Rich and the Fall of Everyone Else. So that, folks, is who is your Deputy Prime Minister. The rise of the super rich and the fall of everyone else. And she's very, clearly indicating, and I was going to buy that book just so I could read, just like I bought The Great Reset and another book. I forget the other one I bought. Which one was it? Anyways, doesn't matter. Just so I could read and understand and but also be aware of the level of lunacy and the level of psychopathy involved to try and create this. Like, I mean, it's absurd. And if and if I can, this throat's bothering me still, guys. Sorry. If I could make a comment about that, is buy books like that. Buy The Great Reset. You have to read this just to like fully appreciate how insanely sick these people are. You can't, like, it's almost like one of these things. You have to read it, and then you kind of have to reread it, and then you read a few paragraphs, and you're like, oh wow. Because they make it so that it seems like a good thing and like they're doing something to promote something for humanity. But when you really read between the lines, well, you don't even have to read between the lines with some of it, with a lot of it actually. But with some of it, you kind of have to be like, I wonder how would that affect us? And then you're like, oh wait, I'm seeing it right now with COVID-19 and how they've locked us down and they've made us wear masks and they've changed the way society works and shut down a bunch of small business. And anyways, so I digress. I'm getting off track here. My point here was just simply the Canadian government is very much putting it right in front of your face that they are trying to allow the WEF to subvert our local democracy.
Well, all of NATO and all of the EU, actually, like,
yep.
You know, everywhere north of the 43rd parallel besides Russia.
Yeah,
essentially, like, and that's not even exaggerating at all. Maybe Norway fights back a little bit here, but not much.
I wonder if that has anything to do with why they're at war with Russia right now, or why they were in a proxy war with Russia right now. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
The other thing, Scott, and yeah, I commend you for being one of those people who took one for the team. I mean, how can anybody speak with any sort of credibility and even make any sort of a judgment about the Great Reset if nobody's read it, right? So a few of us will read something like that so that we can offer our point of view on it, our state of mind, so that you don't have to digest it. I mean, you can pull quotes out of it, you can do all kinds of things, but I mean, the general tune of this, and here's where it will in particularly hit you. If you're not a person who literally has to get up every day and go and work and do something for a living, and or if you're building something, if you're an entrepreneur or anything like that, you just don't have time to be this bitter with life because you're too busy doing things to sit around and be bitter. But if you're a person who doesn't have much to do with their life, and if you weren't a very productive member of society in any way, and you got into this lull of just having this kind of self-loathing of human beings and the universe itself and everything, and you become nihilistic, this book is going to be like candy for you, because this is basically the definition of, we need to get rid of nationalism because those other people over there are too stupid to elect their own leader. So we'll take over. You just have to get rid of your governments, and then you'll know that somebody smart is in charge, because it's like Bill Gates and it's me, Uncle Klaus, and so on. So you just have to give up this concept of national identity. You're going to have the same rules as somebody in Sri Lanka. Whether that makes sense or not doesn't matter, you know, because the votes come from Munich, Paris, London, Toronto, New York, LA, and nobody else's vote matters, right?
Yeah, that's just one rule for everybody, right? So whether it makes sense or not, and so
I mean, some might even say that a country our size being nationalistic wouldn't be intelligent, and that's why it's not. We have a confederation, not a federal state, and that's because to have this kind of a landmass all following the same rules when we have vastly different geology and we have our own, like, each province has its own culture, because each province is bigger than goddamn England.
Yeah,
most of them are bigger than France. All of them are bigger than Germany. You're right. So you cannot have this all run as one piece, and it shouldn't be. But it's becoming that way because liberals want centralized. They want to consolidate all the power in the middle and then have a bunch of props around them as, you know, people who are making it look like you have a vote and shit. And the Soviets did this, and Nazi Germany did too. It's pretty much par for the course. China's still doing it.
Exactly. And so, we talk to you guys about this almost in every stream because it's rampant. It's called Marxism. And this is the evolved form of Marxism in the Great Reset is basically, the promotion of, and this is a UN agenda. However, it's heavily adopted by the WEF, and it's things like 15-minute cities. So get everybody into one localized area and concentrate the population, and then in almost a la Matrix style, put everybody in small little pods where you're putting on your VR goggles and going in your metaverse and doing your metaverse shit and never leaving your little pod. And you're fed through a little tube, probably some sort of insect-based protein, which is what they're promoting right now. Look it up. They're building insect factories. They built one in London, and I think they're building one in BC here, if I'm not mistaken.
That was what the permits say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they say we're just breeding a lot of crickets. So what the fuck are you doing? Why are we suddenly going to need 1,000 times more crickets than we ever had before? What's it for?
Millions times more crickets.
Yeah.
And it's for human grade facilities. So why are we all of a sudden building facilities to make human grade crickets?
Yeah.
Unless
they're going to make like fucking everybody owning 8 geckos is going to become mandatory. And then we're all going to need like $10 worth of crickets every day to feed our goddamn geckos.
Well, as somebody who used to keep a bunch of reptiles, I can tell you
Yeah.
that crickets cost about, depends on the quantity you buy, but they cost between a penny and 10 cents a piece.
Yeah.
And most things, and I'll say most things, only eat a few crickets a day at most. Some things will eat like 10. Some things will only eat 1 cricket every week. Just depends on what it is. That's probably more like tarantulas and arachnids and things. But still, most things don't eat that much. So it can't be for us reptile lovers or anybody else into that kind of shit. So, just saying, all of this is available. So you guys know we're not full of shit here. We always say things here in the stream, but we have ways to back them up. So look up, just do a simple Google search or Brave or whatever browser you use. Look up cricket plants Canada. Anything you want to look up, pretty much you'll find search results. So now, Jay, did you have another segment? Can I do one more little bit here, or do you have something?
No, go ahead. No, keep rolling. Keep rolling. You're on a roll. Keep it going.
All right. Okay, good. So last time we kind of closed out, I think, the segment on the WEF gathering in Davos. But one segment that we saw there was Rebel News following Albert Bourla around and just peppering him with questions. They actually had him backed into an alley, and he was facing a wall, and then turned and faced a fence, and he didn't know what to do. It was almost painful to watch, actually. But
yeah,
I don't know. Whatever.
The guy who didn't get his vaccine for like what, over a year, I think.
No, he didn't get the vaccine ever. He's not.
If he got it at all, yeah. But he did admit after like a year and a half that he hadn't had it yet.
Yeah.
Why would you admit that? Like,
I know. Why would? Yeah. No kidding. I'm quite certain he didn't have it. And if they had a vaccine test, like to test if people have been vaccinated, I'd be curious to see who has and hasn't been vaccinated up in the leaders area of the world. So I'm going to bring this up here for everybody at home. Look who came up. Can you see that here, Jay? Is my screen share good?
You're not screen sharing yet.
How's that?
There you go.
All right, good. So here's my buddy here, Albert Bourla, Pfizer CEO, found guilty of misleading the public. Imagine that. So he has been found guilty of misinformation. A UK regulatory body found Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla guilty of making misleading statements about his company's vaccine. Go figure. Nobody ever said that. We never suggested that was happening ever. In December 2021, Bourla appeared on the BBC where he promoted the vaccine to children under 12 before the UK regulatory authorities had even authorized it. Immunizing that age group in the UK and Europe would be a very good idea, Bourla said. There is no doubt. Of course it would be a good idea because it makes him money. Why wouldn't it be a good idea if it's going right in his pocket? There's no doubt in my mind that the benefits completely are in favor of vaccinating 5 to 11-year-olds in the UK and Europe, he added. Subsequently, a private company called Us and Them, which seeks to protect children's rights, filed a complaint to the UK's Prescription Medicine Codes of Practice, and he was found guilty of 3 different things. So sanction-wise, Pfizer was given a slap on the wrist, of course. And so that's why they keep doing what they do, is because
that's why you pay a $4 million retainer to your law firm every year. You're planning to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do, is they mislead the public and then they expect a slap on the wrist. And it's even a company like Pfizer that was given the biggest criminal fine in history, 2.3 or 2.6, I forget what it was, $1 billion, for fudging studies and false advertising and misleading the public. They're doing the same thing again, and somehow
but just for some context there, everybody, Pfizer made $120 billion in 2020.
Yeah.
So $2.3 billion, they could care less. They make more by January 30th.
It's chump change, but that's because they're allowed to do these things. And what they've done is they've installed members that were either former Pfizer members or potentially future Pfizer members on different, like at the FDA and different regulatory committees, and they control. They it's the fox is watching the hen house.
There's that gray industry that's popping up now. This gray industry of when FBI agents retire, they go to work at Twitter, like a lot of them. When politicians retire, they generally retire early these days, and they immediately dive into some Fortune 500 company and go on a board that runs that company. That immediately and right off the bat comes with a huge injection of shares and ownership in that organization. So what happens is they play ball while they're in politics, the whole time they're in politics, each and every single thing serving the one entity, which when they retire is then going to recuperate that for them by giving them a board position, by giving them a fat salary, a nice office somewhere that they never have to go to, and a lifetime membership to the WEF and a free trip to Davos every year, normally valued at $500,000. That's or more. Sorry, pardon me. It's quite a bit more than that. And so this is one of the things people go into politics. Well, I mean, you could save what is it, $800,000 a year now on your WEF membership if you become a politician. You can then move on to an auspicious job at a big corporation, even though you don't have the education or the merit to have reached that level. That's what you get. That's the payment. And it's public bribery, and it's public bribery in plain sight.
You made a good point there. I just want to rewind for a second here. They have this, so the WEF has an admission fee for the summit at Davos, and I think it's 110,000, 200,000, something like that. And then
260 this year.
260, and then they have a membership fee to be part of the WEF, which is another, I think it's another 600 and something.
Yeah,
so
it comes up to 846 or something.
860, 840. So it's almost $1 million. So let's just round it up to $1 million, because for people like us, the difference between 846,000 and $1 million is nothing.
Yeah. So look what Chrystia Freeland is going to have saved by the time she retires. just on not having to pay for her WEF membership.
So, and that was my point. So
Yeah.
they have this program, and they promote this this program. They promote this education. They make the contacts, and then they say, well, if you get elected, you're going to save yourself $1 million a year. Plus, you'll be able to meet with all these people and decide policy and do all this a lot easier in what is an unsanctioned event. Like, this is not a political summit. This is not like a G7 thing where all the countries have agreed. This is a formal way to conduct our discussions. This is simply a private group that promotes themselves and their leaders and their agendas. And this is how they are subverting our democracy, just right in front of you. They're just doing it, and
In plain
we're all standing here going, they're not doing that. It's conspiracy. And it's funny. I still hear people going, the WEF controlling things is a conspiracy theory. It's not really going on. I've seen that be reported by reporters, or be mentioned by reporters, be mentioned by politicians. And even in the House of Commons, they've said, entertaining conspiracy theories in the House of Commons is ridiculous. We don't have time for this. I think I'm willing to believe some people are that stupid, but I'm pretty sure not everybody's that stupid. I'm pretty sure not everybody's swallowing this fucking thing, because they're doing it and they're saying, no, it's a conspiracy theory. We're not really doing it. And they're doing it right in front of our faces. And it's the same thing as I said last time, where they're going to tell you there's, what was it? In 1984, where they keep telling you 2 + 2 is 5. When it's 4. 2 + 2 is 5. 2 + 2 is 5. No, it's 4. 2 + 2 is 5. Eventually, you break down, you say it's 5, and that's when they know they broke you. And it's almost like they know they've broken you because they did the COVID thing. And they went, well, we're just going to tell them they got to wear fucking masks and walk in single lane fashion through the stores at Walmart, and they'll be fine, but they can't go to the small grocery store because they'll be sick there, and they'll believe that. There was no logic to anything they said, but they said it, and you believed it because they just pushed it. That's how they knew you were broken, and that's why they know they can get away with doing this shit right in front of your face, because they know you're broken. They know you're not paying attention. They know you'd rather scan through your Instagram and go, did I get any likes on my last picture of lunch?
Yeah.
Or whatever other fucking thing you're doing. This is how they know they've broken you, because they've addicted you to the little bit of dopamine you get every time you get a like or a mention or whatever the fuck people go for. This is how they know they've broken you, because they will put something out on social media and they'll create like a 50 bot program to create a buzz about it, and then you'll buy it and you'll retweet it and you'll buy into it, and then you'll go with it.
Yeah,
and they do,
and I'll second that, because I've felt it at times. I mean, I usually check myself, or actually, to be quite honest, my girlfriend usually checks me about it a little bit, and that's how I get back on track. So, but I know it happens. I know that it's intentional. It's casino. It's casino sociology. It's the same exact thing that they're doing with casinos. Give them the bright lights. Give them the big sounds. Distract them, and the grocery store. Even if you go to the till at a grocery store, there could be a cashier 2 lanes down who's like flapping their arms. You can't see a thing because everything has been put in place to confuse you and distract you, and that's essentially grand scale kind of what happens. And I mean, it actually requires work to get past that. It requires work to look beyond it. And so there's an investment, and not everybody has the time for that investment. But this is exactly why the podcast world has taken off, why we have the Blaze and Rumble and even Truth Social doing so well. Dan Bongino's on top of the world. Timcast is growing incredibly, like it seems like every day, because because these people are investing their time. These people and us, we're investing our time to make sure that you can still get the message without having to really bog down, without having to devote an hour and a half a day to actually finding things out, because it's slow work. It's slow to look outside of what is plainly available in fiat. To look outside of that is slow. And then to make sure that it's accurate, because not all of it is, and you want to be better than the schmucks over on the other side. So what do? You make sure you drill down, you make sure it's accurate. We have to be skeptical of ourselves and them. They don't have to that same amount of effort to put in. But this is why, get on these platforms, get off of the TV, get off the radio, listen to podcasts, listen to people who back up what they say and don't just express opinions, but actually quote stats, that you can tell have actually looked at this, and check your local secondhand store, as Scott mentioned, because there are books like The Great Reset, etc., that people probably read once to say they have read it so that they can now speak with some sort of authority, and then they take it to the secondhand bookstore and trade it in for something that has more essence, like the Bernstein Bears or something.
Yeah, another forgive me folks, I'm dying over here. Another recommendation I have is The End Game. You can look that up on Amazon. And that is a book. Just look it up on Amazon. It's about our fearless Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is fearless about something. I don't know where it is. Now there was one more little bit I wanted to talk about, and Jay, I want to get you. I have to open up a window to show some tweets, but it's the Chinese spy balloon. So everybody on the planet's heard by now that there was a Chinese balloon that floated from somewhere over a large portion of the continental United States and mysteriously lingered, although they say they have limited controls of the functions of the piloting, lingered over an ICBM field in Montana. And did you hear about that, Jay?
Yeah. I certainly did. Yeah, okay. It's a wild one. I mean, I would suggest that it was probably made by operatives who are in the United States. I very much doubt that crossed the Pacific. So which makes it even more. It makes it even worse.
It is quite feasible for those balloons to travel the whole planet.
Right.
That is quite feasible. However,
there's a lot of radars to get past there, though.
Here's the thing that I'm going to theorize here for those of us. I'll say theorize. The Canadian government, the Canadian military, has been training Chinese soldiers here in Canada. And that was the Liberals' idea, to train them in cold weather warfare. The Chinese government has been found to have several police stations operating illegally here in Canada. There has been a lot of scrutiny, or a lot of people poking around about the possibility that China might be pulling some strings here. And we've alluded to.
Well, and just for veracity, folks, there has been a cease and desist order on those. Like, that's not just a theory. The RCMP did issue a cease and desist officially on that matter. That's actual fact. That's not a theory.
No, that's not a theory. Just like it's not a theory that they ejected 2 Chinese spies from the Level 4 lab in Winnipeg. That's not a theory. That's a fact. Just like it's not a fact that the CSIS
matter of public reference.
Matter of public record. Yeah, just like it's a fact that CSIS has found that there's significant foreign interference from the People's Republic of China into the government of Canada's affairs.
Especially elections.
Especially elections. These are all facts. Okay,
that's $20 million, I think, that funneled through that and into elections so far. That's
So-
the number that we have so far.
So far. And so here's my thought, and I'm going to try and bring this up. This may or may not work, Jay, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to try and bring this up. But here's my thought, is that maybe, just maybe, the Chinese spy baron originated.
I think
I don't think I can bring this up.
I think OBS is feeding back your audio too.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh.
Yeah, there's a crackle. There's a wee crackle.
A wee crackle. Either way, I would suggest that that it originated at CFB Suffield in Canada.
Sounds good now.
And footed over the border there, and
Over the
that's why it
Montana.
wasn't. And that's why it wasn't tracked or noticed by Canadian officials, because you're telling me that got all the way through NORAD and into the States before it was noticed. Not to mention the fact that they let it float all throughout the whole country before they bothered to do anything about it. Once it had left the shores and was over the ocean.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other part. And it's too bad Montana doesn't have such a thing as Alberta has. I don't know if BC does either, but Alberta has a map of all the municipal districts, and then you can make landowner partitioned graphs from that. And Montana, what I've found out through my research is that 12% of Montana is owned by Chinese, owned by Chinese nationals, meaning people who don't have a U.S. green card. So, you know, but I'm curious to see the map now that I hear the theory about Suffield, because I'm just wondering, can you imagine like opening up a map and seeing that there was like a giant L of all Chinese-owned properties that lead directly to, so it could have flown over its own fucking airspace, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, but they don't own the airspace above a certain
well,
height.
no, but they own all the area where you could be standing on the ground and viewing it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to see from the ground. I mean, when you know it's there, you can see it, but unless you know it's there, and it's not an easy thing to see from the ground.
How low would it have to be flying to go under radar, though? Like, that's not
well,
radar invisible. It's a big fucking sphere.
No. See, so here's the big question, right? So this thing's floating in and around in between 60 and 65,000 feet.
Okay.
So it's not floating too low for radar.
Right.
And therein lies the question. Now, I suppose you could say like the ceiling for like the F-22, for instance, its ceiling is, I think it's 58,000 feet, which is quite high.
Yeah.
You know, previously oxygen thins out so much that about 35,000 feet that most planes did not fly above that, and they changed that in the F-22, that it had a lot higher ceiling than other planes. That said, this is a helium-filled balloon, so it doesn't have need for oxygen, and in fact, from what I understand, it was about the size of 2 or 3 school buses, so it's quite a big thing, you know. And so they shot it down with a Sidewinder missile. There's footage of that on Twitter. You guys can look that up.
Yeah.
And splashed it into what they say is a shallow part of the ocean, so they can recover the electronics on it and figure out what it was. Now, the Chinese government came back and said this is you know, meteorological balloon, and it's you know, it's been, I think, pulled in a westerly or something, like some sort of wind thing. They said they had no control over it. They lost, or they had limited control over it, and it was you know, but the thing is it lingered, and it was very obvious. You can see the flight path of it played out. There's a few different spots. You can see it kind of a graphic of what it does and how long it is in certain spots, and it lingers over the biggest ICBM field in the States, in Montana, for an extraordinary amount of time. So, I mean,
yeah, it's I mean, to me, like, that's like I guess range finding or something. I mean, I talked to a friend of mine named Levi, who's like an ex Israeli commando, and he said, like, with the Iron Curtain, like with Israel's defense network, that they would have found that thing long before it reached. And that's not to discount satellites. I mean, at this point, we don't use weather balloons, and China has weather satellites that preclude the need for weather balloons. They have better equipment than that. So it's like, well, it's quite obviously that it has sinister. There's a sinister context.
Certainly, but there is certain, like, I mean, I'll play the devil's advocate for a minute here. There is certain data that can't be gathered about weather from satellite. There's actually a bunch of data that can't be gathered from satellite, but one might say, well, the Chinese have a bunch of spy satellites, so they can just use their spy satellites. But in order to get a good full picture of one area, they have to be able to crisscross their satellites over one area for a considerable amount of time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that takes time, and they can't really gather changes in, like, you can only get shots, and then it has to do another rotation of the Earth, then you get another shot, and then the other one comes in the other way, you get another shot. So you don't really get to see the full picture. Whereas with a weather balloon or a weather baroon, what they could do is, especially with the miniaturization of electronics, is they can put a bunch of, like, say, ground penetrating radar and a bunch of different things in this balloon that they can hover lower, and they can have different kinds of sensors and different kinds of information gathering devices that they can't get from the height of space. And so this is what I would suggest is what happened, is that they had some sensors, and they wanted to take some good information, or get some good information about what the Americans actually had for their nuclear arsenal and some different things, and they decided to just float a weather balloon and then say, no, this is so.
But it's tactical in nature, tactical, not science or weather related, but tactical.
That's my opinion. They have not released the findings. China's response was, it's not tactical. It's weather. It's civilian. Blah 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 blah.
Which is what you would say. I mean,
of course. And they also said that they would respond justifiably, or so, like, in other words, they would respond in kind. And I was like, I don't, like, what does that even mean? You get.
Well, because China's claiming that they own the ocean where Taiwan is. So if the U.S. puts aircraft carriers in Taiwanese waters, then China considers that in their waters. That's what they're this isn't part of any kind of a debate that's going on at any level. This is just China saying, this is China flexing and saying, no, that would have belonged to me, round eye, motherfucker. That's.
Well, I mean, that for sure, but them floating this balloon through, like, especially in the climate that we're in on the world scale, with the proxy war we're fighting with Russia, and with the fact that the Chinese have made no secret about their backing of Russia, nor have the Iranians. I would say that if you take all that into account, for those of us who are still a multi-celled organism, you could probably figure out that this was not a weather balloon. And this was, in fact, a spy balloon. And they did this because they want to gather information about the U.S.'s nuclear arsenal. And so,
well, and here's another piece of information they could have got from that too.
That should scare you.
Did they want to know how high the United States arsenal could go? Did they want to find that max altitude too? Did they? Because now we're like, they have an aerospace program. America has an aerospace program, so, are we looking at, I mean, even Virgin Mobile can put things in low atmosphere, right? Like, it's, it's not, it's something that we need to be concerned with on that front too. Like, does China have the ability to just put something into orbit over China and then just literally drop it immediately on that specific place in the United States, and just with impunity, because by virtue of they're more versatile at low atmosphere.
So most ballistic missiles will go actually out of the atmosphere and then drop back into the atmosphere. And that is why they had the introduction of what they called, I think they called them space wars or whatever the fuck it was.
Oh, no, I don't mean an ICBM. I don't mean an ICBM. I mean like a shuttle. Like if they put a shuttle in orbit, a giant fucking dirty bomb, and drop that, what are you going to do? Shoot it down out of the sky and drop vaporized radiation onto yourself?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like, yeah. So it's like, that's what I mean is like, could that be a prequel to an escalation of war technology and finding out how far they have to go? You know, on paper, the X-22s don't go up there on paper, but now they know they do.
So exactly. And so what should also scare us is that you know, you want to talk about the evolution of Chinese military and ICBM technology. What they did do also, and I've seen a video of this, is they created what is essentially a CCAN, or a shipping container mounted ICBM system. So it's a shipping, you know, container, and that's a series of, I think, 6 of them or 8 of them stacked across the top of a shipping container ship. Sails across the ocean, just like all the other shipping containers do, all the other shipping container ships do, and parks just offshore. And then the front end or the back end of the shipping containers lifts up, and there's ICBM sitting right there. Not even ICBMs, just super fast close bombs. They have that. They have that. They've done that. They have that. So I mean, we could have missiles off our shores right now, as could anywhere in the world, and we wouldn't know it because they're completely hidden inside of shipping containers.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at, I mean, that takes you right over into, you know, the Chinese have been notoriously piss poor of hiding things over the years. Russia, not so much. The Soviets were always pretty good at keeping things under wrap. So, you know, if you've ever wondered what Russia has the capability for, you know, you know, if you're scared of China, you know, right now everybody's kind of tweaking Russia's nose, and they probably have as much capability as China does, if not more.
Well, I'm going to say that they certainly.
Elon did buy the first rocket from Russia, after all.
Yeah, he did. I'm going to say that they have equal capability, but what they also have is China's backing, and so even if they don't have the technological capability, they have China's backing, who has the technological capability probably far beyond anything we have, and then some. And I think a lot of people forget that we don't see technology until it's 20 years old from the military. And I would suggest, if I was really doing some critical thinking, I would suggest that I would favor China in the development of technology over the States or anywhere in the world. So,
well, definitely at the moment, because right now we're all doing, like I said in the intro, we're all doing the fucking debate over turning our society into a unisex bathroom, you know, like, and so we're kind of slipping in other areas, and with the exception of the private sector, which is interesting, like, you know, and now we have amazing things going on, and possibly the ability to counteract these terrible technologies, and the ability for planetary escape. And it's like, you know, we're going to need that at some point, you know, like we end up going global if we don't do enough to stop it, and we end up going global, and then there's a global civil war. Wow. I mean, we're going to need to build some arcs and get some people off this rock and start terraforming. So, you know, that's down the rabbit hole, but it's like, if you start preparing now, if you put it in your family, a way to survive and a way to move forward and a way to be a contributor in the future, then there's value in that. The echoes, Marcus Aurelius said, what we do in life echoes in eternity. A druid once told me that we are the echoes of the people who came before us, moving on into eternity. And so, don't take the black pill. Take a couple red pills. Don't take the whole bottle. Keep educating yourselves. Keep learning things, and preparing, and be ready for anything.
Yeah,
anything.
That's right. Don't
I know a
be
guy
complacent.
here in town. The power bills are crazy right now, and I just ran into a guy I know here in town. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Scott. And he has a generator because he lives way at the end of the grid. So he said, if I run out of power, there may not be anybody else whose power is out. So I have a generator just for those times when I have to wait half a day, 2 days for power. And so he knows exactly how much diesel that generator uses when he's operating at a certain capacity. And he looked at his power bill, and he looked at the price of diesel, and he said, well, honey, call Fortis. We're using the generator this month. And he went and got diesel, and he saved a bunch of money by running his own generator versus getting power from the electric company. And that's the world that we live in. And they want us to not burn fossil fuels while you make it impossible not to.
Well, yeah.
Solar panels don't grow on trees. It's that simple.
No, they don't grow on trees, and pretty much anything to do with solar or electric right now is more pollutant to the environment than typical regular old petroleum. So
the manufacturer's bad.
There is that, yeah. But I think that is another stream, and I think, Jay, unless you've got anything else, I think we're gonna call it there. We're both of us are a little under the weather today, folks. That's why we did not get anything done for you Sunday. However, we will be feeling better in a couple of days, and I've got something I want to bring up before we go. I want to talk about on Thursday is the State of the Union address, and bumbling Joe Biden's barely coherent address. I want to break some of that down and cover some of the lies.
Yeah.
Some of the lies. I can't cover all the lies because most of it was lies, but I want to cover some of them with actual statistics so that you can see what he said was a lie. So next time.
I didn't have it in me to watch it today either, folks. Tomorrow. I procrastinated because I'm like, I can't deal.
I had to I had to do a lot of zoning out, and then try and listen for important things or slurs. I think that because I was trying to figure out when his Adderall cocktail wore off. Then I knew it would be time to tune in and listen to what he was babbling about then. Because at first he was on point, kind of, but then he was like, Russia. And you're like, fuck, now he's done. Or when he went off script a couple of times, you're like, he's not on the teleprompter right now. So I'll try and bring some of those. I recorded as much of it as I could. So I'll try and bring some of those for next time, Thursday, where hopefully I don't sound like I've swallowed, I don't know, a bunch of crickets.
I did a frog. I don't know why.
Well, whatever.
I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself. A bird will fall frozen dead from a bough without ever having felt sorry for itself. That's the quote for today from Longfellow.
Mine is to leave you with a thought. Don't waste your time, because time is short in all senses. Time is short, and when you spend time worrying about the little things and worrying about things that really aren't that significant, you waste that time. And time is the only non-renewable resource in your life. So don't waste your time.
That's why we call it the present.
There you go. All right. Much love, kids. Thank you. Unacceptables. I am Scott. This is Jay, and we're out. We'll see you Thursday. Thanks for putting up with our shit. And I'm sure this was something you'll regret later. All right. Good night.
Cheers, everyone.